everybody. Welcome to this interview in our March Staffing Monthly issue, where we are celebrating the women of staffing. And we are talking to several of the co-authors of the book, Together We Rise, which is an amazing book. If you are a woman in staffing, if you are a leader and you have women on your team, if you are a girl dad, there's honestly great advice in there. And you just want to help figure out different ways to maybe ascend to higher levels of the staffing hierarchy or life in general, this book is chock full of amazing stories of amazing women that have led all different lives and all different paths and faced all different types of adversity to get to where they're at. And I am really, really thrilled to introduce our guest today, who is Kelly Boykin, who is the head of MSP at Real Staffing. And she's been in the industry a while, 25 plus years, starting out as an account manager, literally at one of the entry-level positions in the industry. And she's worked her way up through some of the bigger companies like Remedy and Acquient, all the way to the most senior level positions of these companies. And just over a year ago, took on the role of head of MSP at Real Staffing, which is huge. And Kelly, I just want to welcome you to Staffing Monthly and just thank you in advance for sharing your wisdom that I know that you're going to bestow upon us today.
Thanks for having all of us. I know we really appreciate it and appreciate your vested interest in women, if you're a woman or if you know a woman, right? So good opportunity for all of us.
I am. I'm a girl dad, and I'm always looking for, to learn better ways to, to be a parent. And I've also been a manager and mentor to women in staffing, and I recognize my own blind spots, and that's why I want to learn from people like you to be better. But I also want to share the story that I heard in the book, and that's really what I wanted to ask you and have you share with our audience. Is the one thing that connected with me is you talked about the people that we need in our lives are generally already around us, and that you specifically had one mentor that was the right person that said the right thing at the right time, but he basically saw something in you that you didn't quite believe in yourself yet. And I just want to talk about, like, what did that look like? What did he unlock for you that helped you kind of ascend to the level that you're at today?
Oh gosh, we have hours, right? This is a 5-hour interview, I think, right? Um, you know, One of the things that I talk about in the book is how we all, especially women, tend to focus on and know our weaknesses. And I absolutely started my career in staffing heavily focused and very, very aware of all of those, right? And the trick for anybody getting into the workforce and for somebody managing that person is to figure out how to get them past, I have all of these deficiencies, and have them focus on, wow, I can actually really do this and I can do it well. And my mentor slash manager, Mike, that I refer to in the book, what was so incredible about him was he didn't see the same, he looked at the same qualities I did, but he didn't see them as negatives. He saw them as strengths. And that was very unique. He saw my, attempted bad humor most of the time. He saw my, outspoken, and a lot of the things that he saw in me where I might have thought about them as a weakness, he saw those as strengths. And it was really interesting to sort of witness yourself through somebody's eyes and have a completely different picture being painted of who you were and what that looks like. And so, I think that was really thing one that I could point to as the very first thing was him looking at me and saying, man, I see X, Y, and Z strength in you, and I know that you can do something. And he leveraged that to push me into stretching, into trying new things, into expanding. But he didn't throw me off of the end of the dock and say, hey, I'm going to give you a bigger opportunity, go. He pushed me, but he also set me up to succeed. So he gave me the information, he gave me the support, but he didn't do it for me. And he pushed me and said, I know you can do this. I know this is going to be great. Go for it. But again, set me up to succeed. And oftentimes those were initially some smaller wins. There were smaller things that he wanted me to tackle, so that I could gain that confidence and really sort of come into myself and realize how I was going to be able to be successful. And each of those little wins celebrated and reinforced along the way, building that confidence. So just that, it was very simple. It was just all of that.
So I love that. And so just for the viewers that are watching this right here, can you just take us back and like maybe think about one of the first times that he gave you a project or gave you a directive or direction or something to step into that maybe you didn't have the comfort level with or the confidence or experience, but you had to kind of step out in faith. Can you talk about maybe how you were feeling and maybe the self-talk that was going on in your head at that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many examples. A big one that I think of is we had just won a very large customer, and it was a little bit out of our wheelhouse in staffing. It was basically building a clean room for a semiconductor plant. And so we were to hire 200 or 300 very senior people to be working in this clean room. So I knew nothing about that at all. And in order to do that in the time frame that they wanted, we were going to have to do these mass, I would say, presentations to the community for several days, educating them about what it was, telling them about the role, and getting them excited to apply. And he started off doing the first 1 or 2 presentations, and we're talking about 200 or 300 people at a time, 9,000 people in total. And for whatever reason, he said, I feel like you need to do this. And so when you think of that feeling, it was unadulterated terror. I'm an outgoing person, but with those sorts of feelings when you're starting off, like I can't speak to this number of people, especially about something I don't know. And so he talked me through it. I used his presentation notes. And the first time I did it, I'm sure it was very shaky, but he didn't come back and say, you stuttered here, you did that there. He said, the best part you did was X. And so I kind of felt pretty good about that. And I ended up having to do that presentation over a 5-day period of time, like 18 to 20 times. I don't even remember how many. And so it became easy for me not only to recite the material, but that feeling of confidence in front of a large group, I was pushed into, supported in, but that walk away was, okay, I can actually speak to 9,000 people about something I don't know and do it in a way that comes across pretty well.
I love that. And I'm guessing that your advice to a manager today that might be mentoring, subordinates or, any team member, but women in staffing to be able to sort of follow a similar path to maybe give them a little bit more than they might be experienced in or on their plate, and then see how they do, safety net like the trapeze artist, right? And then provide some feedback to reinforce the good things that they did, so they're not always berating themselves on kind of the shortcomings or sort of the deficiencies that frankly we all have, right?
Well, first of all, you absolutely read the book in the chapter. So I really appreciate all of the references to it. Yeah, if I were to make this sort of formulaic, I would say this. You certainly can't only be rose-colored glasses and focus on people. You do have to be able to give feedback and help people develop, but that needs to come from a place of trust and a place where the person is giving you this feedback because they want you to be better. But making that formulaic would be look for strengths, or look for how something can be turned into a strength and verbalize it, because just because you're seeing it doesn't mean that person acknowledges or understands that it is a strength or that it could be leveraged into a strength. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be to find opportunities for that person to stretch. And that can be small things. It can be a small project. It could be mentoring or training somebody else for a specific thing. It could be taking on a team. It could be any number of things, but push them to stretch. Remind them about why those skills that they have are going to help them do it, but make sure you're setting them up to succeed, because it's going to be 10 times worse if you push them and they fail. You've got a lot of work to do, and so do they, to kind of catch back up. So
Yes.
those smaller stretches with lots of support wrapped around them. And then, as I said, number 3, celebrate the hell out of it when they do it right. And they will do some things wrong in there too. You have to point that out also, but start with, this is why that was such a great thing.
I love that. I love that. And so going back into like the first step, kind of acknowledging, strengths or even, weaknesses that might be able to be, used or leveraged as strengths. One of my favorite quotes from your chapter And I love this disarming honesty and transparency in it. But you mentioned that the biggest obstacle that you face even today and all along your journey was yourself. And I got to believe that most people, for them, that's true, right? So how do you, let's just say that the manager hasn't really been able to observe a strength or a weakness that could be leveraged. Like if you're going to talk right to the person, the woman, the young account manager working a desk right now that says, how do I become a senior account manager? How do I become a branch manager? And they keep beating themselves up with that negative self-talk and talking about, like, talk to that person for a second and tell them how they can get out of their own way.
And I feel like I do that a lot because we do tend to focus on those things. As we said, as individuals, we focus on the negative. You know, I don't think there's a magic wand. I think it's a relationship at first. So for you to really truly manage and mentor somebody, you've got to get to know them. And in getting to know them, you do start to look for and see where there are strengths or where there are things that can be carved into a strength. And I talk about this in the book. I think strengths and weaknesses aren't necessarily opposite. Oftentimes somebody's most dominant qualities might be look negative, but there's probably an upside to them. And so I think just those honest conversations of talking somebody through, what is it you see when you look in the mirror? What is all this noise happening in your head that you're hearing that you think is holding you back, and talking them through that and helping to put a little bit, actually feel like I did this earlier today, put a little bit of a clearer lens of, you're seeing it as being really, really, really dark or really, really painful, and it's not. A lot of that is in your head, and here's what I'm seeing. I am seeing X, Y, and Z, and so again, I don't think you can swoop in as a manager and drop some wisdom and walk away and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, now I'm the most confident person. It's the relationship and in you investing in them. And oftentimes it takes time, and you might be undoing years of garbage that they have trained themselves or somebody else has said to them that now they need to work through. So it takes some time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that was really the analogy that I pulled with all the superhero talk, was that, sometimes what if the kryptonite is the strength, right? Like I love that part of it. And then you wove that in so nicely to the story. So I want to come back to this. So how do you, because I also don't want to set this false pretense that everybody has to get to the head of staffing role or head of MSP or the president chair or the C-suite. So how do you know how to properly support an employee on their own journey? Like, how do you set realistic expectations for what they want to achieve?
Gosh, I think many, many books have been written about that. And if I had the answer, I would probably be on the other end of this interview. I think so much of it really is understanding what it is they want in life, what excites them, what is their passion. And that's a very hard question, not only to ask, but to have answered, especially when you're younger in your career. And everyone starts their career, by the way, thinking, well, I need to be in management because that's the next thing. And as we all know, there are more bad managers in the world than there are good managers in the world. And not everybody is set up to do that. And so oftentimes it's the what is it that you want to do, but it's also the why do you want to do that? And oftentimes when I dig down, I find that it's not really that they want to develop and mentor and train other people. It's that they think that's the next part of their journey that needs to happen for them to grow. And so if especially if I see somebody who I kind of am a little bit concerned, maybe they're not a true people manager, it's getting them to understand what a journey can look like for them that's going to get them excited. And within my own organization, it'll be, just very transparent conversation around, here are the ways that we can go, and let's talk about where you want to go from here. But yeah, I think that's just so much of it. And I'll keep saying the same thing. It's a relationship, it's a conversation, it's honesty, it's being a safe mirror for somebody to say, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? How can I help you get there? But I also don't want to set somebody up, to be the CEO of S3 Real Staffing in a year. That's probably not happening. And so those reality checks are really one of the more important parts of that trust.
So I love that you brought that up, that there's different definitions of success, to advancement, professional development, that not everything has to be up, right? So how would you, let's say you have an amazing female manager on your team, branch manager, they're managing the operation, and you look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, this woman would be an amazing regional VP or something up the org chart, right? And you talk to them and they're like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm really just good right here. Like, I don't want to go any further. How do you best support them? Like, how do you continue to allow them to develop and become the best version of themselves? Because we all have room to grow and wherever we're at, right? So how do you focus on that person that might already be as far up as they want to go?
Yeah, it is the definition of success in that role. It doesn't mean progression. It's okay, so I am whatever level I'm at. What is, if you look back on yourself a year from now and you say, man, I crushed it this year. I X, Y, and Z, fill in the blanks. What does X, Y, and Z look like? So I think you really kind of said it. It's not necessarily forward progression in the traditional career movement, but what does success look like for you this year versus last year? What will make you proud at the end of the year? What's in the way of you doing that thing right now? How can I help? And where does that still require people to get out of their comfort zone? Because you don't continue to grow and get better at anything if you just continue to stay where you are. And so oftentimes within the same role, within the same position, are they going to be rewarded by helping somebody else get there? Are they going to be passionate about training somebody else? Are they going to be passionate about landing that next big client? How do I help them do that?
I love that. I love that. Well, I got to tell you, Kelly, I'm excited for this. I truly am grateful for your time today. I really enjoyed reading about your story in the book. And again, anyone watching this, like, click the link on the page, go get this book. It's a super easy read. This is a great airplane book. This is a great airplane book. Like, when you're sitting on the seat and like you can get through this in pretty much any leg of a flight, like, and it's captivating. The stories are amazing. And then I would encourage anyone, if you read this, like, find the people that you connect with and reach out to them and build relationship, as Kelly has mentioned, is so important. If anybody wants to reach out to you directly and say, hey, Kelly, I'd like to learn more about your journey or some of the adversities that you faced, or maybe how to overcome some of my own, disbeliefs or negative self-talk, like, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I would say probably LinkedIn is the easiest, rather than, giving my private cell phone number to the entire universe, along with my bank account and my 4-letter code. But LinkedIn is probably the best place to go, and or conferences. I tend to be at those a lot too, and so I love when people reach out and say, "Hey, I read the book, or I heard something about it. I'd love to grab you over coffee," or something like that. So
I love that. And we'll get your LinkedIn link right here on the page. And obviously the link to the book will be littered throughout this issue. And I look forward to seeing you at some of the upcoming conferences.
thank you so much for doing this again, and for investing this time in us in this conversation. It's really wonderful. So we appreciate it.
Listen.